get it started. Thank you guys for joining the session today. My name is Don Murphy. I am a commercial account manager with AMD for ANZ. I'm only one of two guys on the entire team for all of ANZ, so we have quite a small sales team. AMD focuses on engineering, not on marketing. So appreciate your attendance here, and I'm really here just to make more awareness in the market for AMD, because obviously the other guys have a massive marketing budget. We don't, so we want to make sure that you guys know there is an alternative other than your default selection when you select on your instance. And also, if you do that, you might be able to get a performance gain or a cost savings, or if not, both. And we'll just also talk a little bit about what's available in the market or what's coming. So, as you know, I'm sure your history with AMD or your knowledge of AMD is probably based off our gaming heritage. But what you may not know is that AMD is a lot more than that. Not only do we make amazing laptops, desktops that are extremely power efficient, extremely high performance, they also make workstations, but even more than that, we are actually very heavy into the data center and have been a performance leader in the data center for the past 7 years. Now, we also do GPUs, AI accelerators. I'm sure you guys know about all the AI boom going on nowadays, so we do a AI graphics GPU for that. We also do system on chips or embedded chips, so if you've got your Xbox or a PlayStation, it's embedded in those. Also, your Tesla, we are embedded in that as well. And we also do smart NICs, which gives you some sort of offload of networking type functions. So that's most of what we do. And again, we focus primarily on designing chips. We don't fabricate them. We actually offload that to another vendor, so we're highly efficient in our supply chain, therefore giving better costs back to you guys. So I've been in server pre-sales for over 15 years, and even I didn't know the performance lead that AMD had in the recent years. So I came over to AMD about 6 months ago. Back in 2016, AMD was roughly a $3 billion company by market share, by market cap, and they only had about a 2% market share in the marketplace. So now they're roughly a $275 billion market cap with about a 30% market share in such a short amount of time. Now imagine if you had stock, some AMD stock back in 2016, you're talking about over a 90x growth in your performance, so in your portfolio. So also with AI GPUs becoming very aware these days, or very relevant, what's going to add to our performance as well, our financial performance. Now, since most of this is really a recent development, as you can see on the chart, our lead has really exponentially gotten larger over the past several years. So a lot of IT people in the industry are not aware of our data center prowess. So why should you really care, and what's in it for you? So there's a couple different approaches you could take. So for your instance that you use on AWS today, you have generally a default option with an I on the end of it. I'm sure you knows what that is, right? But what if you take a look at another option where you could actually get the same or better performance, and possibly get also a lot better performance, giving you better cost savings as well. So either A, you can take one approach by getting better performance by making another option, or B, you can get the same performance, if not a little bit better, for a less cost. A couple of different approaches you can take. So here's just a few examples of our performance leadership. So this benchmark just shows that on several different types of benchmarks, you have Java, VMware, virtualization, SAP. This is based on our 4th generation chips, CPUs, called Genoa. So Genoa is, our code names for our chips, CPUs, are based on Italian cities. So our previous gen was Milan, our current generation is Genoa, just for reference. And in this benchmark, you can see that we're almost double the performance of the other guys. And I'm sure everybody knows who the other guys are in the instance, right? So can't name them out today, but they are there. And this is basically a direct apples to apples comparison based their latest gen versus our latest gen. So obviously you can see the performance gains are quite significant. Now, what you may not know also is AWS has AMD, has the best performing instance on AWS worldwide. There is a new instance called AMD based instance called the M7A that's available in the US and some other regions, but it's not available in Australia yet, and it is coming. But we need you guys to create demand, right? They're going to bring it here sooner if you demand it. So if you want the best performing instances on the marketplace, we need you guys to go out to your AWS rep and demand that out. And so we can get it here sooner in Australia, sooner than later. Now, how can you get access to AMD-based technology on AWS? Well, there's several different ways. You can do that as a platform as a service, which there's quite a few options, as you can see: storage, analytics, media, databases, gaming, things like that through the services. But we're going to focus today on the infrastructure as a service, which is basically EC2. Oh, go back a step. Sorry. On the far left here, that's going to be your most common instance. What your default in EC2 is probably going to be the M6i, so I being Intel based, and so the M6A is the AMD based. So anything with an A on the end of it is going to be an AMD based instance. And again, this keeps sliding. The general purpose one is going to be your most common. So the general purpose is actually a general purpose for all enterprise types of applications. So it's SAP certified. You can run Microsoft SQL. You can run SharePoint, as well as Exchange, things like that. Sorry, the slide keeps going. Now we also have some other optimized instances. So we have a memory optimized. So if you have an in-memory database, you can do things like that. Also some data analytics. We have a compute optimized. That's good for like batch processing. It's also good for some HPC workloads. And sorry, if you're talking about HPC, it's not on the slide, but we have a new one just latest since 4 months ago. It's called a HPC 6A, available in Australia. And even though the 6A is actually based off our previous gen, the Milan processor, it actually is 65% better performance than the other alternative. So that being the case, can you imagine if we can get the latest gen product here in Australia, how much more that will be? And not just that, we have a graphics intensive option as well. So if you do rendering, do gaming studios, things like that, then we have options for that, as well as some other very unique specific instances. Now, we have benchmarks across a variety of different workloads, just to give you different metrics. Now, here you've got from the front end to the middle tier to even the back end data tier, these are Genoa-based instances, and each one of these are going to give you a higher performance on AMD-based technology. On the average, we use a 37% smaller footprint for a 27% lower instance cost. So, and if you take a look here on a couple of these, are pretty dramatic. The NoSQL, 55% fewer instances, and video processing, dramatic, also at 47%. So if you have those kind of workloads, it's definitely in your interest to take a look at the AMD-based technology. Now here's another benchmark based off Nginx, which is a web server software. So in this case, we're able to push a lot less instances to do the exact same workload. So instead of running 8 instances on the other guys, you could run 5 instances on AMD, therefore giving you a lot less cost, right? Here's just another version based on compute jobs. So in this example, we're running a compute job where most companies use a metric, which is basically like a cost per job. So we're able to run 41% faster, which will bring your cost per job metric down. So if you're looking at a cost per job basis on your particular workload, this is definitely something to take a look at as well. Now, I just want to give you a more standard example where an enterprise-based application that everybody's familiar with. This is Microsoft SQL. Now, I want you to take a look at the far left. So that's the baseline using the 6i, the Intel-based unit, as our baseline. As you can see, there's a couple paths to upgrade here. So you can either go with our same generation, or excuse me, our older generation unit that's currently available in Australia for it's a less cost at a higher performance, right? Or, again, we can demand to bring the latest and greatest CPUs over to Australia and then get the newest instance with the M7A and get a much higher performance for very little extra cost. Or you can take another path and go to the latest gen and actually have your vCPUs, which therefore reducing your SQL costs, so your licensing cost, as well as your instance costs, giving you a very dramatic difference in your TCO. Now let's quantify that one a little bit more. So how do we calculate this? We use the AWS bundle pricing calculator for SQL Server. So we compared the hourly, the monthly, and the yearly cost, which is roughly about 23% better performance on AMD, even with half the vCPUs that we're using. So in the previous example, we did an example where you had 16 vCPUs versus instead of 32. We're using that instance, giving you a dramatic cost savings of roughly 45%. And if you look at that on a yearly basis, that's roughly about 12,000 USD. That's just on one instance. Now, scale that up. If you have a very large environment, you can imagine what kind of cost savings you get across the enterprise. Now, just remember that we also use the same basic x86 technology that the other guys do. So when it comes to migration to AMD, it's really straightforward and pretty much seamless. Here's also an example of a customer who's based in Dubai, has headquarters in Dubai and Singapore. Now they're a travel search engine across 60 countries. Now they get many search queries every day, and so they migrated from on AWS to AMD-based instances, and they improved their performance by 30%. But instead of just saving that money, they used that extra additional performance savings to give them, they added 30% more instances to give their customers a much better experience. And for them, switching costs were minimal. It only took them a week to migrate to AMD-based technology. Again, it's all based off x86 technology, so it's very easy to migrate. And now 90% of their infrastructure is AMD for this particular company, for WeGo. Now we have a very deep relationship with AWS. We're a ISV Accelerate partner. We have 19 unique EC2 instances types across 25 AWS regions. Very deep partnership there, as well as 21 AWS services like EMR, ECS, EKS, and GameLift. And we also do joint marketing with AWS to do proof of concept funding. So if your organization needs to do a proof of concept on a new workload, we can work with AWS to help fund that for you for initial use case and test out your environment. So we thank you for taking the time to visit with us today, but don't take my word on it. I want you to test your workload and your instances on AMD and see if you get the same results as we do. And this is our local team. Go ahead and take a photo if you want to reach out to us and come to our booth if you have any further questions. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you, Don. That was a great session from Don. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Don, who will be out at the AMD booth. In our next session, we will be having essential tips to protect critical identities. That will start at 2:20.